thank you to all our viewers from around the world and to the Africa Center for partnering with Africa Soft Power Project. The ENDSARS movement is an indication that the Nigerian creative industry understands what it means to power social movements and strategically leverage soft power in the fight for Nigeria and by extension, the Africa's future. From Falz to Runtown, Nigeria's creative industry has amplified ENDSARS, framing it as a movement affecting every social class and placing it at the top of social and public agenda. In this session, we're in the midst of giants, Seun Kuti, an activist from before he was born, the son of Fela Kuti and the grandson of Runtown Kuti, and Isha Sesay, who has herself just concluded her ENDSARS program with Bella Niger and African women on board, a testament to why it's important for Africans to themselves speak for Africa before anybody else. And of course, we have Osas and Akah, who have also just used their platforms to spotlight ENDSARS. Leading the discussion is Oreka Godis, who is an actor, producer, radio and TV presenter. And she herself was part of the ENDSARS movement and the legacy team that launched the Beat 99.9 FM in Lagos, a leading radio station focused on music, information, and the Nigerian entertainment industry. Thank you, Oreka. Thank you to the Africa Center for this partnership. We're inspired by your work and the work that you do. Thank you to all our guests. And without much ado, I'll hand over to Oreka.
Thank you very much, Nkiru. Okay, so I just want to do quick housekeeping, if that's all right, before we get started. So if you can look up and follow Africa Soft Power, that's at Africa Soft Power, soft with a T, and the Africa Center on Twitter. They are also on Facebook. So if for whatever reason you need to change platforms, for example, I personally started watching the previous session on my phone and switched to the TV as I moved across rooms. So please know you can absolutely do that easily by joining the live stream on YouTube. If you're watching us on Facebook and you want to share it with someone on whatever social media platform, you can also do that and share the YouTube channel with them so they can watch and engage. We would absolutely love to hear your voice today. So please send us messages on either of those platforms. We are checking them, we're going to be reading them, and we're going to be sharing them. We are also following the hashtags ENDSARS as well as hashtag on silenced voices. So those are the two key hashtags that I want to highlight, but there are other hashtags and you can find them again, either via Africa Soft Power or the Africa Center on Twitter. So go find us, send us messages, and let's be a part of today's conversation. Today's session is aptly titled Creative Power and Conscious Awakening, Eyes on Nigeria. And I'm personally very excited to speak to the guests today, the panelists, I should say, today. Starting off with Isha Sesay, who is a seasoned and award-winning journalist. She's a speaker, host, president, and founder of WE Can Lead, which the W and E stands for Women Everywhere Can Lead, a nonprofit organization dedicated to nurturing and empowering teenage girls to become Africa's next generation of leaders. Now, prior to founding that, she was a leading anchor and correspondent at CNN covering the major breaking news and global events of the past decade. Whilst at CNN, she led the news team to win a 2014 Peabody Award for coverage of the kidnapping of the Nigerian Chibok girls and received a Gracie Award for outstanding anchor for her exceptional coverage of the story. Welcome, Isha. I can't wait to hear what you have to say today. Also joining us today, we have Seun Kuti, a Grammy-nominated artist, activist, and leader of Egypt 80 Band. He's also the youngest son of legendary Afrobeat pioneer Fela Kuti and has followed the political and social ethos of his father with a twist of his own, creating music that digs deep into various African traditions to reflect the continent's struggles and cultures. He has toured globally, including, we're talking Detroit, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Philadelphia, Paris, London, Tokyo, places that my COVID passport will not let me enter. A passionate activist, he has participated in the ENDSARS protests and the 2012 Occupy Nigeria protests, amongst other things. Also welcoming Osas Ighodaro, an award-winning actor, producer, host, and humanitarian. In 2018, she was named the highest-grossing box office actress in Nollywood. She won the award for Best TV Actress at the 2014 edition of Exquisite Lady of the Year Awards and was crowned Miss Black USA 2010. She's the founder of Joyful Joy Foundation, a non-governmental organization focused on addressing malaria, poverty, and HIV/AIDS amongst children. And finally, we have Akah Nnani, an amazing actor, television host, content creator, and YouTuber based right here in Lagos, Nigeria. He has been described as one of the fastest rising Nigerian stars to watch. At the 2019 Africa Movie Academy Awards ceremony, he was nominated for Best Actor in a Supporting Role for the movie Banana Island Ghost. His YouTube channel, Akah Bands, has been recognized as one of the fastest growing Nigerian YouTube channels. And those are our panelists. I say welcome again to you watching. Again, I remind you to please make sure you find us on social media. And this conversation is not just for us, it's not just for Bands, it's for you watching and us speaking to really, really engage. My name is Oreka Godis. I wear a lot of hats. One of them is as a podcaster, which is why I have this fabulous contraption in front of my face, so forgive it. But there's no other hat I wear that's more important than the one I get to wear here today as your host for this session. We have a lot of questions to get through, and I'd like to encourage you to please ask as many questions as they pop into your head. No question too great or too small. And with that said, let's get started. I would very much like to start with someone who, I mean, to my knowledge and my memory, he is somebody who comes from a long bloodline that runs 3 generations deep with activism. I'm talking, of course, about Seun Kuti. He is grandson, as you know, to women's rights activist Chief Olufemilayo Ransom Kuti, nephew to Dr. Beko Larry Ransom Kuti, and son of Fela Nikolako Kuti. Seun Kuti has been an activist all his life, speaking to a range of issues, including police brutality and bad governance. Now, joining us today, I feel he's representing the voice of not just himself, he's representing the voice of his community. If you follow him on social media and the work he does with NigeriaResistance.org, for example, you already know that beyond his music and words, like generations before him, he speaks to freedom. He speaks for the poor. He speaks for the misunderstood, the misrepresented, the disenfranchised, and asks us all to check our lack of empathy and our privilege at the door. And when I say like I'd like to start with him, it's also because I want us to start from having an understanding that words mean things. And I feel like throughout this movement, Seun, you've tried to emphasize that to us, that when we throw words like hoodlum and thug or NURTW thug and vandal and hooligan around, and we're trying to separate it from protests, sometimes we're actually alienating the very voices that we're speaking up for in terms of who is being oppressed. So I want to ask, what's in a name? What does a protester look like to you?
Oh, well, hi. Thanks for having me on, guys. I think in general, you know, a protester is everybody that is not, that is trying to make change in their own way. You know, in this modern era, I say to everybody, you know, what everybody does is different. There's some people that don't even leave their house, but they're online and they're supporting whatever is going on with memes and tweets and reposts, you know, and things like that. And there's some people that are right there in the picket line, you know, resisting the front, as I call it, the front line. You know, there are some people that handle finance and help the protesters with food and water, you know, and things like that. And so there's, you know, and there are those who are also neglected from that organized conversation. That
all right, I'm just gonna
feel they have. I'm sorry.
Are you?
I don't
awesome. I can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Okay. And they also feel like they have something to say to the system. But you see, there's something in Africa. When you are poor, right, there's a certain way you are silenced in Africa that doesn't happen anywhere else.
I'm just going to pivot quickly and ask. I'm not sure if I can't hear you at the moment, Seun.
Can you hear me now? I'm sorry, my internet is going off and on.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Sorry, let me see.
No problem. I actually have a question for Isha Sesay. So whilst you sort out your internet, I'm just going to quickly ask her that, and then we can come back to you. That should give you. Okay. So from taking a special interest in
there's
okay.
Let me switch it and see what happens.
Okay, so I'm just going to say that from taking a special interest in Chibok girls at a time when even Nigerians living in Nigeria doubted, and perhaps some even still doubt, that the girls were taken in the first place by Boko Haram, to being one of the first few international journalists that chose to, or maybe was able to, shine the spotlight on ENDSARS and provide a platform for international eyes to feel that they can credibly set their eyes on ENDSARS protests. As we say here in Nigeria, Isha, I have jam questions for you. You know, on the 20th of October 2020, you shared a very passionate message with your online followers. And if I may quote one of the things you said, Isha, at the end of one of your videos, you said, "Our lives matter. And I wish to God that our governments felt that too." And the way it resonated with me, it really brought me to tears. Not in the least because I had stayed up watching live videos of what had happened that day all across Lagos. So for those who are not aware, just as Nigerians have turned to social media to speak up against the atrocities that we're facing in our everyday lives at the moment, so have people in other African countries, using hashtags such as Anglophone crisis, Congo is bleeding, child trafficking, rape national emergency, shut it all down, am I next, Zimbabwean lives matter. You see how I'm running out of breath? That is how, a lot of us are losing our literal breaths. We are dying, we are asking for help, and we are suffering in so many different ways. And these are just a handful of random hashtags that I picked, right? And this is just to name a handful of easily searchable, very pertinent issues that African governments collectively could engage in and speak to neighboring African leaders about. These are hashtags from countries like Cameroon, the DRC, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Liberia, Namibia, South Africa, Zimbabwe, respectively. But the repercussions, if we all choose to turn a blind eye, are far-reaching. So when African governments do not openly wade in on important issues and denounce the activities that are very inhumane, it can constantly feel like as Africans, we're on our own and we only have each other. And so in the absence of timely weighing in on issues by our governments as Africans, I'd really like to get your opinion, Isha, on creative ways that Africans can engage each other and amplify each other's voices, regardless of where we're physically located. And is there anything you think from a cultural perspective or creative perspective that we are not leaning in on? That was a very long introduction, I apologize.
No, thank you for the great question, Oreka, and thank you for the invitation to be with you here on this Monday. I think that first and foremost, you mentioned culture, and is there anything culturally we could lean into? So let me start by saying that unlike, Eurocentric nations or North American nations, as Africans, we are about community far more than these other places in the world. And it takes a village, and all these other quotes that we say comes from an understanding that we are saddled, if you will, with the responsibility for caring for our neighbors. Ubuntu, I am because you are. That interconnectedness of our lives in Africa is our central premise, our foundation. And I think we need to lean into that more, especially in the absence of our leaders showing a willingness to care for us, you know, and that's really what it is. There is a fundamentally broken compact. That's what I believe, that there's a fundamentally broken compact between far too many African governments and their citizenry. And that sense of responsibility, duty of care, that sense of holding people accountable has largely faded away or exists in a very frayed state. So at this point in time, knowing what I consider, or what I say is that truth, then we need to lean into that sense of Ubuntu. We need to lean into that sense of connectedness and use social media and these platforms to tell our stories. I no longer wait for international media to deem our stories worthy, and I don't think we should wait any longer. They will catch up. I think ENDSARS is a perfect example of how the people led, Nigerian storytellers led, Nigerian content makers led, and then people like myself, you know, also added their voice to it. We must take these platforms, we must have these gatherings, we must have these conversations, and outside of the digital realm, in the physical realm as well, wherever you are, we must be using our power, our convening power, to whatever degree that exists, to bring people together, to challenge what are very, very pernicious norms on the continent. And I have faith that as the continent gets younger, that our embrace of this technology will become stronger and our voices cannot be ignored. I don't hear you.
I was just saying, we're going to pivot right back to, thank you, to Seun, because he was saying something to us about, you know, what it looks like to be a protester in the Nigerian and perhaps the African context of it, and how does that differ to, you know, someone who they claim is hijacking, you know, a protest because they're hooligans. You know, are we dressed a certain way and that makes us a hooligan? Are we dressed a certain way? Are our demands different? Are we allies when we're asking for things? Do we have the same goals? So Seun, Kuti, I'd really love to hear what you were going to say earlier. I can't hear you if you're there. If you're not, I'm just gonna pivot again, if that works for you. Okay, I'd like to bring in Osas Ighodaro on this one, because you are someone who I have seen at a number of protest grounds, everything from okay, Seun's here. We can hear you. Okay, so I'm just going to finish the question I was asking, which is for Osas. I have seen you at a number of protest sites, everything from ranging on issues from Bring Back Our Girls, Black Lives Matter, Say No to Rape, Enough is Enough, and so much more. And for me, I feel that there is a sense, I mean, I've even seen pictures of you during these protests where you've gone and you've represented, you know, the voices of both yourself and, I was about to say constituents, like you're a politician, which you're not, sorry, but your followers as well. You know, I'd like to get a sense of what you think was different about ENDSARS protests in comparison to all the other protests that you've been in Nigeria, or been a part of, or even just observed as a Nigerian.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Beautiful, beautiful. First off, thank you guys for having me be a part of this amazing conversation. You know what? The fact that we're actually having this conversation means so much, to be able to just speak on it and not look at it as, oh, just something from afar, something that, oh, something that will sort itself out. We're having the conversation, which now prompts more work and more change. I think the ENDSARS hits differently because it's right in my backyard. Like, unfortunately, it really took a big toll on me because on October 20th, 2020, I wasn't on the grounds at the Lekki toll gate, but I could hear the gunshots. I live not too far from there, and I could hear the gunshots, and it really hit close to home, literally. And, you know, just seeing my brothers and sisters being brutalated on a daily basis, hearing this on a daily basis, hearing so many different issues on a daily basis, it's like it just falls on deaf ears. And finally, there was a breaking point. And if you weren't a part of the movement, it was like you absolutely had to be living under a rock. Even if you weren't in Nigeria, you felt it. You want there to be change. Even when I decided to move to Nigeria, and there were certain things that I just couldn't understand, just as a human being, why exactly are we living the way that we're living? It's not something that I could fathom as a Nigerian, as an American, as a human being. There's certain things. There's no reason why I'm driving and I see, you know, homeless people or people that are less fortunate, when this is a rich country and we could absolutely live in better terms, but we aren't, because of corruption, because of greediness, because of what have you. You know, it really hits very close to home. I mean, I too even have an NGO where on a monthly basis we go out and we try and solve the issue of malaria, and seeing how people would come out, even if they have some naira, they're not going to use that naira to solve that situation. They're going to use that naira to go and eat something that shouldn't be an issue for a country that is rich as Nigeria. So each situation in terms of ENDSARS, in terms of rape, it all hits close to home, because we're all human beings, you know.
Absolutely.
I don't want to get emotional about it.
It's okay. I personally have had, I think this is probably my second stretch, like day 2, where I haven't just randomly burst out crying. Like I'd literally start speaking to someone and then I'd be like, oh, my voice starts crying. I'm like, what's happening? And tears, like, oh, I'm sorry. My emotion is pouring out. So it's okay. We have been through the ringer, and I don't know if you were in Nigeria at the time when the June 12 riots or election thing happened back in 1993 in Nigeria. For some people who are were should I say fortunate enough to not be here, or maybe they were part of the Generation Y who weren't quite born yet then. This period was very traumatizing, because for them it was the very first time that they experienced this. And I think this is key, because I don't know about you, and Akah, I'd like you to weigh in on this as well. But I saw people tweeting, I saw banners of people writing things like, the previous generation failed us, you know, we are the, you know, you messed with the wrong generation, we will fix this. And there was a lot of drive and energy, and I loved it, because I haven't seen it in that way, you know, emboldened in that way from my generation, which I think I'm technically Y. So it's the Z that were saying this, and they're young. And I don't mean to sound patronizing when I say young and naive, because I want to be naive. I want to not remember the things I saw during June 12. And I imagine the baby boomers and the Generation X before us as well, part of the reason that they were quiet in periods, because they remember the murders in different parts of the country and over the decades that have marked the history of Nigeria being independent for 60 years. So, I mean, how have you been able to cope with that even? And Akah as well, I definitely want to hear what you think. Where were you when the shooting of the unarmed ENDSARS protesters started?
Hello, everybody. I hope you all can hear me. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on this platform. First of all, I just wanted to say that ENDSARS is something, ENDSARS, the protests, and also, you know, 2010-20 should be something that we should never forget. And I mean, we come from a generation or a lifestyle that is very quick paced, and it's on to the next thing. Life moves on. But I just want us to never forget what happened that day. And I hope that Nigerians, Lagosians, South, and the whole world actually never forgets, the whole of Nigeria needs to remember that something like this happened. There was a massacre at the Lekki toll gate. I saw a tweet from Alex today, and it made me think, because I had said this thing before, and just seeing somebody else reiterate it just made it very, very important for me to, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to put it on my Instagram page again, that the Lekki toll gate has to be renamed as Lekki Memorial Way, and it should be toll free, because the people who have lost their lives there have paid the price for anybody else who is passing through that toll gate. I wasn't there when it happened, but I was there because I heard the shots from DJ Switch's Instagram page. I heard the shots. I heard the screams. I was there literally through her camera when she was screaming and showing us somebody's death and saying the blood is on my phone. Whose blood is this? I was literally calling friends calling me. Do you know anybody there? Are you there? Because I had been on the protest ground 2 days before. And so anybody could have been there that night. Anybody could have been there. And I just hope that we don't forget what happened. And it's not just, ENDSARS was not about take away a bad unit from the police. It ultimately was people screaming out for, against bad governance. And literally against bad performance in everything. I mean, look at Seun Kuti here. He has paid for his freaking internet. He has paid. But then there is no government body to oversee the telecoms companies. Nobody. I pay for my internet every month, and then I have to also buy mobile data because I know it will always mess up. There is no regulatory body that is doing their job. And so this is what we're asking for. We just need better performance across board. So I feel like the Gen Z generation were able to carry the fire that the millennials started, because unlike us, they've been trained by their mobile phones. We had some of our parents imbibing us the Nigerian oppressive culture of, don't say to your elder ones when they are wrong. If they are wrong, keep quiet. But they don't have that because they watched Twitter growing up. They had Twitter literally schooling them. They watched Cartoon Network. They watched Hollywood TV. But the truth is that what that has done is that it has exposed them to a better world. It has exposed them to the way things should be. They've seen what obtains in saner climes. And they're like, why can't we have this? Why can't I live in a country that has better internet? Why can't I live in a country that their president is talking like this president on CNN? Why can't I live in a country that the poor, still has food to eat? Why can't I live in a country that their currency is high? That's why the Gen Z had to run with that. They've been exposed to something, another life, another world on their phones. But their reality is different, but they know that they have the capacity to live a better life. So that's why they're angry, because this nation has never given them anything. Not even during a global pandemic did this nation step up their freaking game. They had the audacity to steal Indomie. Steal.
Indomie.
I'm telling you, Corona killed some of their colleagues. In another world or in another government, they will sit up and say, we need to get the health system better. If not for anything, for ourselves, because we can't travel out now. So we need to do it better. They still didn't. So what is the problem? If they cannot even do it for themselves. So the Gen Z, and thank God for them, the Gen Z did that because they've seen that something else persists and they have nothing to lose. Most of the Gen Zs don't have jobs. They've finished school. Most of them are in school, but they can't finish because school is on strike. They have nothing to lose.
And some people with jobs are making less than minimum wage. Yes.
Like not happen, move on.
Akah, you're going to get me riled up.
Younger sisters and people on to fighting a fight. We should have ended. The man should have gotten that shit done.
Akah, you're going to really get me riled up. So I think I should beg your internet service providers to take
the gates and stopping from the press. Them, even though it's not right, but I don't blame them because they saw oppression.
Yes. I mean, as a Nigerian, I personally feel like I'm used to being ignored. We have issues, and from time to time, we feel galvanized to come out and peacefully make our grievances known. For the most part, we're either ignored by authorities or they give us crumbs to sort of pacify us temporarily. They placate us, we go home feeling tired, but then thinking, well, at least we tried. And then we give up. And then we move on until the Lagos hustle or Nigerian dream or whatever it is that we use to distract ourselves distracts us adequately, whatever that might be. Now, this period of ENDSARS has been very interesting because I remember earlier this year when Big Brother Nigeria was on, and it reported, well over 900 million votes were cast. And the Nigerian government were mocking the youth of Nigerians, saying, you know, that we basically spend so much time online and we care about very trivial issues. And the older Nigerians claim that Nigerian youths are being more invested in Big Brother, the TV shows, than actually participating in things that matter in Nigeria, be it politics or, well, now generation XYZ, all of the above, we're now we fully have given them our attention, and we're paying attention to the actual real Big Brother, which is Big Brother Nigeria, the powers that be. And they seem to be feeling very, very uncomfortable with it all. Seun Kuti, now that I have you, I'd really like to get your thoughts on the address to the nation by the Nigerian president as the leader of this great Big Brother that we live in.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna actually finish my last stream of thoughts and go to the press, because it's actually the same question for me.
Awesome.
So, you know, the thing is, we organized our protests in Lekki, we organized in Alausa, but we failed to organize our brothers and sisters in all the other far-reaching areas of Lagos. You understand? And we kind of assumed that they will follow protocol. You know what I'm saying? So it's not everybody that could afford to get to Lekki or get to Alausa, but that does not diminish their right to be angry at the government of Nigeria. It does not diminish and also there's no regulation to how this relationship will be expressed and everything. You know, so as soon as I got back to my house that day and the government was giving their speech, the government was in a way threatening the people of Nigeria in a subtle kind of to say, trying to answer you, but you are becoming worse. You know, for me, that's not the way to listen to your people speak. You know, for me, it wasn't about ENDSARS. I think the people of Nigeria wanted to end oppression. And what our president gave us that day was an oppressive speech, you know. And really, when it comes to oppression, sorry, my dog is so troublesome. Go outside. Out. Sorry, my dog. So there's a way to be like, oh, my children are hurting. I'm sorry we've been disconnected. We can do better. What can we do? But first, we're going to tell you the truth about what happened. But what we saw was a government that was in denial of the situation in general. So still, we don't have the truth. And this is why I don't want the young people to engage with government. You know, because for us to engage with the government has to start with the truth. So what happened? So we are engaging to know who did that thing wrong. This is the only reason to engage. But we are engaging right now where both the protesters and the government are perpetrators of something. The government is like, oh, the young people who are violent, and the young people like, oh, our government is unresponsive and killed people. So for us, that is not a healthy way to engage the memories of the people that we've lost. You know, because already I see that as a negotiation within the same class. You know, and not a negotiation that means we want to exchange ideas, but negotiation as in negotiation of interests. Okay. The Nigerian middle class, in a way, criticizing young people for being violent during the protest in the inner cities, right, means that we are still putting things over people. The conversation in Nigeria right now cannot be about the things that were destroyed over the people that were lost. And I tell you categorically, I being somebody that has listened to everybody in the grassroots of many of the areas where there was this violence, I have found out that the government of Nigeria is refusing to accept that everywhere the people actually went to burn the police station or be really, really violent, the authorities had killed people there. So be it in Orile, be it in Ighodaro, be it in Ojo, in any of these areas where they say they had this spark of violence where people actually went and threw bombs and stuff at the police station, they had killed people there. So this is the part of the narrative that nobody's even talking about. And for me, when people are even talking about the Lekki massacre, I'm like, what is Lekki? People were killed all over Lagos. You know, a boy still came to my house 4 days ago that was shot in the stomach in Ikeja. You know, he was lucky, you know, it was a through and through and he missed his organs, but he went right through like there and came out like there. You know? So, I mean, so many people lost their lives these past few weeks in Lagos. And the annoying thing, the most interesting thing right now is that the police have refused to come out on the streets to do their jobs. You know, so this for me is the most interesting part of it. It shows that the executive is still trying to punish the people of this country for speaking up for their rights. So it's not even about the president's speech, but that the people of this country are still not really being listened to. People are on the panel of inquiry. When my father's house was burnt in 1977, the first thing the government did was to create a panel of inquiry. And at the end of it, they said it was unknown soldiers. You know, so my family has made the mistake of engaging the federal government without admitting who is wrong first. That, okay, this panel is to know what to do about who is wrong. You know, immediately we engage the Nigerian government, every day for them is a day to muddy the waters, manipulate the stories. And the fact of it is, if there's a panel to discuss police brutality in Nigeria, then we'll be there for 10 years. Everybody in Nigeria has been brutalized at some point. You know, maybe except the elite with their police security and things like that. You know, so for me, it's a real wide-ranging issue why people are called hooligans for protesting. You know, because in Nigeria in general, you know, poor people are silenced. Poor people have no rights to express themselves. How dare you? You know, you're a hooligan. You know, but our senators and government officials express themselves with violence all the time in this country. All the time.
Authority.
I mean, the funniest part is just in the last election, the present deputy speaker of the House of Representatives seized the mace, and ran away with it. You know, and that when I saw the picture of these young boys in Isaleko that stole the staff of office of the Oba and were running away with it, it kind of looks similar to me. You know, I mean, if one person can steal the mace of the country, the mace, our mace, in the most hollow chamber of our democracy, and he's promoted, I mean, why should we blame anybody for stealing the staff of office of the Oba?
Yeah. I mean, not that we're encouraging people to commit crimes. We're not encouraging people to kill, to steal, or anything that basically harms another human being. But we do, like you rightly said, Seun, have instances where people that we have elected into office have, you know, beaten people live on camera and nothing has happened. We have seen situations where I remember there was someone who beat up a woman, and the CCTV camera caught it all, and he's still in office.
And at the same time, it's not even right or wrong issue. For me, I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. It's cause and effect. Right. It's a cause and effect thing. So I'm not saying people go. I, for one, I don't like violence. Like, it's a last resort for me. You know, growing up in the house I grew up in, I really understand the nature of violence. So
And some of the areas you mentioned earlier as well, like Orile, these were people did die there, and these are places in Lagos. Just for our international audience who might not be aware,
yeah.
I also make a point of letting people know that Lekki massacre was frightening. But if there's one thing that happens out of that we can say thank God or be fortunate and thankful for, it would be that DJ Switch, people like Godson and others that unfortunately I didn't get to see their videos live, had a mobile phone with them and were able to record it live and say, hey, look at this before the narrative changes. But then I think about the other areas from Alausa to people in Mushin, different parts of Ogbomoso and Abuja, where maybe they didn't have the kind of device that could have filmed it to show what's happening live, or they didn't have the social media following to amplify those voices. And this is something for Seun and Isha as well, if you can pipe up, please, and let me know your thoughts about how people in remote areas, the people who are underserved, can find, for lack of a better phrase, a creative way to get their realities out there so that we can see it, and what we can do more to amplify their voices through documentaries or to documenting their encounters in any kind of way. If you, Seun or Isha, have any thoughts about this, I would love to hear it.
I do, but I'll let Isha go first.
Okay.
Thanks, Seun. Listen, I think that, you know, another one of the reasons why the ENDSARS movement was able to gain traction internationally was because, and I said it previously in my first answer, the Nigerians who came out and posted and shared the videos they saw of what were people getting into what looked like government cars, and these were supposedly, you know, protesters, but yet they were getting into black SUVs. Like, people could see for themselves what was playing out and the smoke and mirrors that was in operation. I think when I think about other places that are in a state of turmoil right now, whether it's from DRC or to Cameroon or to Guinea, one of the things that those places have not had is the deluge of images and people's voices putting out that content. And so you cannot underestimate the importance of that person sitting in that remote corner, capturing, documenting what they're experiencing and putting it out. It's about critical mass, and it's about more and more people reinforcing and, you know, obviously the images lining up and telling one consistent story, and people go, this isn't a one-off. I saw that video and I saw that video, and it all ties together. We need more of that. A lot of people have said to me, why aren't you speaking out about various other places? It's about access, it's about images, and it really, you cannot stress enough to people, whether it is in Nigeria or it is in these other parts of the continent, the way to do this is for everybody to see their phone as their best friend. I mean, you cannot overestimate the importance of this device today and how it has the ability with critical mass to show the truth and to pull away the veil. So, I mean, to me, again, it comes back to tech. We're leaning into our tech and also into our own minds. That kind of, we need also a mindset shift. We also need that belief that our voices matter, our stories matter, and we'll no longer be silent in the face of oppression and wrongdoing. Seun, to you.
Yeah, thanks, Isha. Very importantly, also, we have to understand how expensive data is in Nigeria. You know, I think our data costs here are some of the most expensive in the world. You know, and our salaries are some of the lowest. So I think it's difficult for the poor people in Nigeria to get online and express themselves. You know, usually they come to us to understand what to know. With their limited data, they want to go to the people that influence them, people that they love, people that they look up to, you know. But where the Nigerian people have been betrayed is that those people for a long time have been aligned with the oppressor, you know. So for a long time, they've played the role of distractor. You know, I know everybody is screaming today how, you know, Nigeria is bad and how we just realized it on two Tuesdays ago. You know, I think the problem with Nigeria, right, is that the middle class, the influencers, we that have been able to find some comforts within oppression, you know, we found it very easy to forget the poor people of this country. So you find that throughout the continual attack for 21 years of this democratic government on poor people in this country, you don't find the middle class going on strike, when anything happens to them, except it concerns us. So maybe there's increase in fuel and we all have to pay extra, then we align with the poor to say, no, we don't want to pay for extra fuel. Or there's a SARS, who stop our friends in their Benz and also stop poor people. And we too, in our Benz, we kind of get affected. So, but we must begin to realize that there are so many things that we must not keep our eyes on the ball for. Not for any reason, but so that our nation can grow in a way that it represents the potentials of everybody. So what am I saying? I'm saying we should now finally realize that we must concentrate on public education, because that is what educates the poor. Because private education is not going to save us from the scourge of ignorance. As we've seen, when the masses, the poor citizens of Nigeria rose up, they rose up against the middle class also. A lot of my friends feel bad about it. And I say to them, well, it's true. But the truth is this: we are also the bankers that launder their money, right? We are the police, and we are the army, and we are the teachers and the lecturers in the university that don't teach well, and the VCs that destroy the university budget and spend it on whatever they like. And we're in the education board, and we're the minister's aides, and we're the civil service. I mean, the Nigerian civil service is so corrupt. Oh my God, and we are there, so we are the buffer through which oppression gets to the people. We are the conduit. It is through us that they are oppressed. So there's no way they will come for their oppressor and not come through us as well. So we must organize on their behalf. They cannot really afford to organize. If we do not use our skill, our little resources, and pull it together and organize to enlighten the people so that they can, really understand what is going on and see that we are in allegiance with them to create a better nation, then what happened just now is just like a dress rehearsal. Because the poor people of Nigeria right now, they are no longer scared. Trust me, I've been talking, I've been going around. They are no longer scared. They're just waiting for things to pop off again.
Can I just jump in there and just say, Seun, I hear what you're saying, and I think there's some truth in that, in the need for a kind of coalition between the poor and the middle class. But I see no reason why the poor should really effectively trust the middle classes, as you say, largely in Nigeria have been the gatekeepers to bigger ills. And I really think that, I guess I'm moving towards a vision of an Africa where people don't need moderators, or they don't need interlocutors, that they speak their own truth. And I take your point about cost in terms of gaining access to these platforms, but our hope is that in different ways, whatever it is, the barriers to entry down in years to come, because I don't think that people should need to pass their concerns through, the middle classes. Yes, again.
No, that's not my point. That's not my point. I said we should create platforms that can help them express themselves politically, because it is difficult to organize under this level of poverty.
Agreed.
If we don't want to be seen as oppressors ourselves, we must be engaged in that process. If we leave the poor people of Nigeria to engage by themselves and coordinate by themselves without our own assistance or allegiance, then whatever they create will also be against us. And maybe there are some people that enjoy the status quo in Nigeria. Maybe there are some people that benefit from the status quo in Nigeria and would never align with the poor people of Nigeria. But those of us that do not, and we are the majority, we are the majority. Most of us are one sickness away from moving back to the village, one tragedy away from moving back to the village, one job loss away from moving back to the village. Many of us are paying our children's school fees by borrowing money. Many of us are here in Nigeria, even though we've got good jobs, we are borrowing money to pay our rent, to fix our car, but we have to keep up appearances because of how poor people are looked at in Nigeria. So we need to all drop, all of us, we've been trained to be aspiring elites. Everybody can make it, keep going, hey, but we need to open our eyes and not fall for that okie doke anymore and realize that what we can all comfortably achieve, right, is a comfortable life. You know, not everybody must aspire, must achieve that. The things that our education, our transportation, our feeding, our shelter are no longer the things that affect the poor people of this country. That
so can I say then, Seun, just to add on to what you're saying, that if we do take all of these things on board, both what you're saying, what Isha said as well, which I hear are very salient points, but then how do we move from the version of activism we've experienced now? And one of the reasons I asked Akah and Osas this question earlier as well is like, what was different about ENDSARS protests? I mean, on the one hand, it's the fact that, and this tacks on a little bit what Isha said, is like, on the one hand, for the first time, there was a movement that had no leader. And anytime anyone came out from the government and said, we want to talk to your leader, there was no one to pay off. It was a matter of, these are the things we would like you to do. Do it. Let us see that it's being done. If you want to address us in the same way you address us whenever you're running for elections, which is you stand up on the podium, you talk to all of us. Let us all know what's going on. And so in addition to that, I want to know what else can we do to move on from this new, can I call it a new version, new wave of activism we're experiencing in Nigeria? And how can we integrate that in a way that the government can make real changes for us? And also adding on to what Akah said earlier, how do you think we should try and engage with our baby boomers and Generation X to have them understand that it's okay to ask questions of your elders without them thinking we're being disobedient or rude? Because as Africans, some African countries or regions have this culture of respecting your elders without question. And if when you do, you know, you're being rude. There's a Twitter that went, that's not African. I mean, I grew up not being able to look at my grandma in the eye. I would literally get a smack on the back of my head like, oh, you think we're mates now? You're raising shoulder. You know, I could not look at her in the eye unless she told me to. So how do we engage the people that are older than us and have them listen to us and understand what we're saying without them thinking we're being rude and belligerent? And this is for everybody on the panel. Feel free to jump in.
Okay, I'll go first. Fine. You know, I think many Africans were raised by Christians and Muslims that claim to be Africans, right? I'm sorry, this might offend, but I grew up in a really African home, and respect and questioning are not the same thing. And, you know, I mean, my dad did not, we couldn't even call my dad anything but his name, you know. So for me, spare the rod and spoil the child is a Christian philosophy. You know, many people, you know, say, oh, it is African, it is an African to be rude to your elders. But we forget that the African elder had certain responsibilities. There were certain behaviors that the African elder had to, first of all, encompass before he could demand respect from young people in the community. You know, it is a cop-out when people suddenly say, oh, it is un-African to talk back to your elders, to be rude to your elders. Being rude in general is just wrong. You know, if there's an elder I want to talk to, I can tell you what I want to say. I don't have to be rude to you. You know, and for me,
sorry, I feel like
I've never seen expressing myself as being rude and un-African.
I think that maybe the way you see it might be slightly different. And I want to get Osas's take on this as somebody who is Nigerian, has lived in the States and moved back. Osas, that transitional period where you're interacting with certain Nigerian elders, were you told you were being rude because you just moved back and people listen to you, or were you told that's not our culture?
It's a culture shock, honestly. It was a culture shock for me when I moved back to Nigeria. There are certain aspects of life, there are certain things that you just don't do just based off of culture. And till to this day, I'm still trying to figure it out, you know? Maybe you start off the conversation with, please no vex, but, you know, I don't think this was right. Or, you know, there's always a polite way of putting, of getting your point across. But I feel like, and I don't want to be rude and I don't want to offend anybody, but can you really teach an old dog new tricks? If they have that implemented in their minds, as you can't now speak to an elder a certain way, And we're seeing that if we're now peacefully protesting and telling you these are the changes that need to happen for the betterment of everyone, and you feel offended that we're even bringing it up, can you really teach an old dog new tricks? And so I am honestly in a point of not knowing how, like, I want to know what the next step is. Like what's next? We obviously have been peaceful. We've obviously have tried to do it the best way possible, but we're still being shut down. I honestly don't even have the answer to that. And you spoke earlier in regards to Big Brother. I just wanted to quickly say, just even as an individual, you go to where the opportunity is. If you see that a country is not giving you the opportunities, you do what you're supposed to do. You go to school, you get a degree, you serve, and you do all that you need to do in order to have that great opportunity. And then there's no opportunity at the end of the road. You go to where the opportunity is. Like, for instance, me, I moved to Nigeria because I found opportunity in the arts. That's why I moved to Nigeria, and I found so many other things from there. But if you're now questioning the youth for not, engaging with politics, then, voting on the Big Brother platform, but not voting in politics, but has politics given back to the youth, to the people in general? Have they? They've not seen an opportunity. They've not seen a good life in regards to that. So I always shake my head whenever I hear a question like that. Why would you now vote on Big Brother, but you wouldn't put out the same energy when it comes to politics? Well, when does the politics put out that same energy and making a better life for all Nigerians? Answer that question.
And I think another important question as well is, a lot of creatives have found social media as an outlet, either through Akah's YouTube videos. We have people like Mr. Macaroni who does his skits. Even you, Osas, you have these amazing pictures that you take showing all the different kinds of creativity that exists on this side of the equator when it comes to the entertainment industry, from the makeup artists to your costumes and everything. You literally have full-blown shoots and just dedicated to this is what we are capable of if we just had enough, power, and the talent is here if we had enough support, if the government worked, if anything worked really. And I'd really like to get Akah's take as well as yours on how you think this new conversation around the social media bill might affect the creative industry, bearing in mind that as it is, things like the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission, you also have the Nigerian, what are they called? The ones that regulate the film and the video industry in Nigeria, already censor films. I remember movies like Half of the Yellow Sun, even Sugar Rush recently, as recent as December, had experienced delays with their release because there was this fear of either inciting a riot or offending a certain government body. So, and this is again, both to Akah and to Osas, if the social media bill is, if its remit is expanded even more, because it already exists, right? Right now, if you say certain things, you can technically be arrested. People can take you to court for what you say, and that exists. But if they expand it any further, how will creators be able to express themselves and show advocacy and support in these kind of moments?
Thank you for that question. So I just want to touch on something you asked earlier before I come on to this point about social media, about how we should get the older generation to hear what are the things we need to do in passing across our message so they don't think we're rude. I think that the responsibility is not ours for that to happen. They have to be the ones to decide that they want to listen to us. Because the truth is, we need to now realize that we are the ones who are in power. This is a country that has over 80% of its population under 35. So we are the ones who they should be finding out ways to listen to. There's a part of the Bible that says, parents do not anger your children to the point of rebellion or something like that. They are not meant to, if the older generation has done all this, they should be sitting down to ask themselves, okay, what did we do wrong? How can we listen to our children? What can we do to get them on the same page with us? How do we see how we can get their dreams, you know, to be to actually be actualized? So I feel like it should be their responsibility. It should be them looking for ways to connect with us and listen to us and hear us out, and, you know, not fail again. But yeah, I think that's what I gotta say on that. I mean, this man, what's his name? Desmond Elliott, in that video at the plenary session at the House, was saying culture is dying. Why should children be insulting the elderly ones? And I was like, that is all you have to pick from all that has happened since the Lekki shooting? And I asked a question on my vlog and on my channel, and I was like, is it African culture for a mother to bury her child, or for a father to bury his child? Is that part of the African culture? Is it part of the African culture that the elder eats before the younger? Since when I was a kid, I used to see that, you know, I used to hear it that, oh, mama know they chop before pikin chop. But now, that's what's happening. The political elites go and eat all the money. Then the change that remains is what they now give to the nation to find a way to make what we can from it, which is wrong. You know, I just feel like that is oppression, not culture. It is oppressive, and it is from pride that people say, oh, you can't talk if you're not a certain age. It's just because they don't see the younger generation as equal to them. You know, and it's just a way to just keep the minority out of power so that it can keep them in control. Now, moving on to social media.
You said something there that I'd like you to explain in English, because we do have an international audience here with us. So your pidgin, mama know they chop before picking. What does that mean within a Western?
No, it
context?
just means, you know, mothers, you know, our mothers don't eat before the child. You know, I mean, in a case where someone is, you know, there's hunger in a home, the father, the mother should allow the children eat from the plate first before they decide to eat.
So may I ask then, and with that, and I mean no shade at all with my question. Does that mean then that with this gotta catch 'em all we're doing, aka Palisade Pokemon, that people are doing, and they're discovering that some people are packing food allegedly and deciding to use it as birthday chops for the people? You're saying that that's not a thing that should be happening?
It shouldn't be happening. And it's one of the things I also touched on, you know, on my YouTube channel. It shouldn't be happening. And then the reason, the traditional media is reporting it as Nigerians looting COVID palliatives. No, they are not looting what belongs to them. You can't steal what belongs to you. You can't take what belongs to you. They're taking what the politicians looted from them. COVID was not even, you know, given to them by the government. It was given to them by a group of billionaires who put money together to get these things across to people. But put it in the hand of corrupt politicians and, you know, senators who now decided to use it for their own self-benefit, which is giving it to their constituents to make them get them votes later, not minding if when they're ready to give it out, it would have been expired or not. And then some others now deciding that they will keep it and sell it off at lower prices to people. I mean, in UK, someone just discovered that there's a shop in the UK owned by a Chinese company selling COVID Indomie in the UK.
So if you don't know what COVID is,
it's preposterous. God.
COVID is it's a coalition against COVID-19. It's a private sector-led initiative, which, if you forgive my biblical analogy, in my opinion, I think it's supposed to be like, you remember that time in the Bible, for those who were forced to study religious education in school, like I was, and I didn't want to. But remember that time in the Bible where Joseph essentially had to prepare for the famine that was coming for about 7 years. And, you know, you create warehouses of this food and you give to the poor and the needy and the hungry when they need it. So COVID was essentially, in my opinion, a version of that. But now people are discovering that some of this food was being mismanaged or mishandled.
Most of the food.
Allegedly. Allegedly. Thank you. So Isha, is this something that you have seen in other countries where people have been very vocal about having access to amenities, especially African countries, and food distribution, especially in times that are so tricky? I mean, COVID is happening for the first time in this region in this way, but there have been other kinds of things that happen in African countries. And have you seen things like this occur?
I think each and every time the spotlight has been shone on, I shouldn't say each and every time, but a number of times when the spotlight has been shone on African countries in the aftermath of a crisis, we have seen that the goods that were meant to bring relief to the citizenry never ended up in the hands of the citizenry. I mean, we have seen that before. I mean, in Sierra Leone, my own home country, I mean, some Nigerians like to abuse me and say I'm always abusing Nigeria for what goes wrong. But, you know, I don't back away from saying when it goes wrong in my own country. You know, during Ebola, you know, a lot of the money that was sent to the country to help with relief didn't make it to its intended destination. Money that was supposed to be used to buy ambulances and the like, when, you know, like, it happens far too often. And I'm with Akah on that point of we just need to stop caring about whether people feel offended. I think if you're asking legitimate questions, then those questions should be asked. And we are not responsible for how you take that question. We are asking for the facts, for the truth, and we have to take a stand for accountability. And that goes in Nigeria and all of this Indomie that has been found and allegedly was going to be misappropriated. It comes down to South Africa, where we're seeing that issue there around COVID and COVID relief and misappropriation with the ANC. Everywhere that this appears, whether it's with COVID or whatever comes next, we must hold our line and ask the questions. It does not matter if you're younger. You have no immunity to those questions just because you were born before I was. We have every right as citizenry to hold our leaders accountable. And in fact, if you stood you stood in an election and you stood to represent us, then you should be even more ready to face those questions, because that's what you signed up for. So don't say now that you've signed up to represent us and to be held accountable, and now that we ask the questions because we're younger, we shouldn't ask the questions. That's what you signed up for. That's the compact. That's just part of the deal. So whether it's in South Africa, or whether it's in Sierra Leone, or whether it's in Nigeria, wherever, or whether it's in Kenya, wherever, we should ask the questions.
Yeah, and speaking of questions, I mean, it is through questions and conversations that people like you are able to engage with Obianuju, who lost somebody in a way that, I mean, that forever just lives rent-free in my brain. And just like the way people have died in Nigeria in recent times, I will never be able to get that experience out. And her father literally having to go into this river and, you know, just point. There's this fish we have in Nigeria. I mean, everybody has catfish, but we call it point and kill. And there's a way that delicacy is, and the way they describe, oh God, now I'm getting a bit emotional. I apologize. There's a way they describe how the father had to go and essentially just, I'm so sorry, had to go and identify or hope to find, you know, his son. And you said something earlier about how we really need to document things, and with people like you who have found ways to, you know, outside of your professional platform, even in your own personal platform, you know, through your Instagram lives and all sorts, are able to document things that we might not have physical videos for at the time it happened, but to bring it to the spotlight. And I think we need to learn how to do that more as creatives. Seun, for example, currently, and I think throughout his entire career even, has definitely been using music to speak to the issues across Nigeria and as it affects people. And I know I asked you this earlier, but I just, before we wrap up, just want to really emphasize, and I want to hear from every member of the panel, what more can we do as creatives to speak for the voices who sometimes can't speak for themselves? So I'll start with Isha, and then Seun, sorry.
Listen, I think that during the week-long series in partnership with Bella Niger and AWB was really, it was really difficult after each and every one of those hours, as I spoke to Nigerians from Falz to Isha Yusufu to Uju, who you just mentioned, whose brother went missing in 2012 and has never returned, DJ Switch. I mean, each and every one of those conversations was difficult, but it was also a reminder of the importance of people with platforms and voices and assigned privilege to use that. What do? We keep our eyes here. It's hard. We're all battling so much input. So many things are happening in our lives, and there's so many things happening around the world. But we have to commit to this continent. As Africans, it rests with us. It does not rest with other people to hold our leaders accountable and to press for change. So we've got to hold this line, and it is whether it's doing, IG lives, whether it's writing op-eds, whether it's making documentaries, whether it's appearing on these panels, whether it is, whether it is raising money to help those who want to stand in elections down the line in Nigeria in 2023. It is doing what we can in our own creative ways to keep the spotlight here and on the continent as a whole. No one person can do this, on their own. It's going to take a community, back to Ubuntu. It's going to come back to us all to connect and keep the light here. And we've just got to, we've just got to. I mean, the stakes are so high, and I just think that the time is now. What else are we waiting for?
Yeah, and to Seun, it's the same question. I'm just going to add something onto that. Seun, have you heard Burna Boy's song "Monsters You Made"?
Yeah.
Permit me to just read out a little bit of that for those who haven't heard this. I'm just going to read a quick excerpt, and it says, "It's like the heads of the state ain't comprehending the hate the oppressed generates when they've been working with slaves, when they've been working like slaves to get some minimum wage. You turn around and you blame them for their anger and rage, put them in shackles and chains because of what they became. We are the monsters you made." So same question to you with this context of how, like yourself and a number of Nigerian musicians over the decades, who have found that the quickest way, the furthest way to advocate for the lives of many is to put that in your music. Do you think there's more? I mean, impossibly more that could be done? And if so, how?
Well, I think, it's good you mentioned, I don't really know the lyrics of the song, but it makes a good point when he talks about working like slaves for minimum wage. I don't really think it is about even just how we work. There's an issue with authority in Africa, not even only in Africa, in all Black communities. Since we've been under imperialism for 400 years, we've normalized the slave master and slave relationship. So everybody in authority sees themselves as a slave master, and we all have to relate to them like they're slaves. So when people talk about this thing, it goes back to this question you asked before about, talking back to people being seen as disrespectful. That is not what it means to be disrespectful in African culture. It doesn't mean you are not allowed to speak your mind exactly as is. You understand? Only a slave is not allowed to speak their mind exactly as is. There's no culture in this world that prevents anybody, be it child, adult, from speaking their mind. This is something we learned from our colonialists. And those of us in Europe that were taken away learned it from the slave master. So the colonial masters here, we have to realize, were the people that trained our first doctors. Because we didn't have doctors. Everybody in Africa was a doctor. You knew your leaves, you knew your herbs, except it was really serious that you went to the herbalist. Everybody was their own lawyer. You have a grievance, you go to the chief and you say your mind, the person speaks what happens. We didn't have these professional accountants. So many of the people that run our societies today, their first contact was with colonialists who hated them, but who normalized that hate as a sort of training. You understand? So all of us now in Africa You know, once we're in a position, even to our, many people go to their homes and they don't allow their children talk to them. Their children are not allowed to, as they say, talk back. You know, even in our homes, we normalize the slave master relationship between the parents and the children. And that is where it actually starts from, you know. So for me, I think it is not about us only singing these songs or trying to say we want to set a protest stage for people to come and, no, we must actually fight oppression in all its forms in our society. We must stand up to say, okay, fine. The biggest problem with our society today is the dehumanization of the people by both political and business elites. And we, as the people of this country, see what we have to see. These people cannot change. There's no negotiating with them. There's no reasoning with them. We are the only ones that can change our ways. And we must change our ways now, you know, to align with the people and end domination in our society. I think that is the key thing we have to key into, you know, stop the dehumanization of man in our society.
Thank you. And I'm going to move on to Akah now, because we've talked, I'm trying to focus as we close on ways that different creative people can make an impact on the things that we experience as Africans. And Akah, I know that your family is one of just amazingly talented people. Your wife is an artist and she paints, she draws, she does artsy things that I pray that God will someday give me the power to do. And I bring her up because during the ENDSARS protests, especially the Lekki ones, there were a group of artists that actually went there, and their version of joining into the protests were painting. They painted live and people could buy pieces of art right there. And for the ones that they didn't fully sell that day, they then put it up online for people to buy. And 100% of the proceeds went towards funding, the ENDSARS movement, to everything from medical and legal aid and things. And I'd just like to hear your take on what you think creatives, whether you're a painter, sculptor, a YouTube creator, TikTok person, whatever it is that you feel God has given you as your own personal talent, how do you not bury it in the sand? How do you speak up for your generation? And also very important, how do you bring previous generations in through the work that you do?
I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to be very quick and go straight to point. So I feel like, and I've been saying this before now, this generation of celebrities and influencers, the burden of this generation rests on our backs, and we cannot afford, hear me clearly when I say, we cannot afford to be about just the glitz and the glam, because we don't have, it's too expensive. If all we're doing is posting nice photos, going for photo shoots, putting up our events, but when it comes to social issues, when it comes to activism, when it comes to speaking out, we keep quiet because it will upset the look and feel of our platform, of our Instagram page. It will upset the pocket. It will upset the brand that wants to pay for our outing. We need to realize that burden rests on us. And I'm saying this because I'm in the entertainment industry and I know how it is. Why a lot of us are silent when it comes to this is sometimes until you reach the neck like this, or when people call them out, they now start talking. But the truth is, we need to realize this generation we don't have the luxury. We need to get that luxury for 2 generations down the line that will have the glitz and glam that we have paid for. But for right now, I feel like we have an opportunity that all of us need to fight and speak up and use our platforms to the best of, because you asked the question about, what the social media bill means and how it will affect. It's not going to affect it. Let me tell you, it's going to kill it. The social media that we have today is going to die. You know why? Because they found a way to control and shut up the traditional media. And all they want now is to control or kill social media, because they've seen that that's the only way that the voices of the people can be heard. And that's where the voice of the people matter. Nobody's on TV anymore. They don't have power to watch TV. They don't have, electricity to watch TV. And then the TV stations aren't even, putting out content that is enlightening anymore. everybody's turned to their phones now. And so they know that that's the next point of call, because they feel that social media will keep them in. If social media persists and people use it, it will take them out of power. They want to control and conserve their status. So I feel that every influencer, every celebrity has to apportion a quota of their life's work to, speaking out. Because the truth is, nobody in Nigeria is wealthy. Nobody. Like Seun said, you're just one sickness away, one havoc away, one bad road away from being in the same situation as the poor man. And we all need to realize that.
Okay, I very quickly want to ask Osas something, and which is leading on to following on from what Akah has just said about celebrities. I had a whole section of questions around celebrities, but we can't get into that now. But in the abroad, in the diaspora, we have seen how different celebrities have been able to advance their careers, usually by engaging in things that involve some level of media training. Osas, as an actress, amongst all the many other hats that you wear, do you think Nigerian celebrities that this is the time when we should engage not in media training where we just learn how to take pictures or whatever, but learn about the most basic things like Nigerian law, so that using our platforms we can be a source of information when we choose to use it for our followers?
Absolutely, most absolutely. Before you even asked that question, some of the changes that I feel that we all should do moving forward was to be knowledgeable on certain things that can move this country forward. When politicians or whoever asks questions or try to shut us down, have the knowledge to be able to educate our fellow, Nigerian or whoever on certain things that they are always trying to push down, to cover up, to not speak about, to shut away, We have to be knowledgeable, and we have to have the strength, if we want a better future, to push that narrative, to keep pushing that narrative and not being afraid. It is scary. I'm not going to lie. It is very scary. There's certain things that, you may wince at, or am I going to be able to post this and not get ridiculed or whatnot? But at this point, you have to look at it that people died. People died on the line for a better Nigeria. So speak up, keep pushing, don't give up. I feel it. I feel the change. I feel the energy all over the world. It's not just in Nigeria. Everybody is talking about it. Everybody feels the change is coming, and we can't quit now. We just have to keep pushing. Get that PVC. I know it's far. When I first heard, okay, you know what, the next step of change is to get your PVC and make sure that you vote. I know it's far. It's far. I want change now. I want change yesterday, but it's a step at a time. Unfortunately, whenever they say, we want to change Nigeria, and politicians say we want to do this and we want to do that, but it takes time. But when it comes to certain things like taking COVID stuff, you don't take time to put those in warehouses and not give it to the people. So I just feel that our priorities need to be on point, and that's on every level. So definitely get your PVC, definitely push through.
Thank you. I just need to say something real quick.
We don't got time. We have to keep this conversation online.
Just 10 seconds. 10 seconds.
10 seconds, because I have one final question.
We need to ask our northern. Yes.
Pay your internet bill.
We need to ask our northern brothers for forgiveness.
Pay your internet bill.
We cannot push for change, or we can't.
He has paid it now.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Good. So I'm saying we need to ask our for this forward.
It sounds like you're stuttering, and you've used up my 10 seconds, Akah. So we're going to keep this conversation going online. It sounds very important what you're saying, actually, and I know I'm joking, but it's just we've run out of time. You mentioned PVC earlier, Osas. For those who don't know what that is, it is a voter's card. It is what we need here in Nigeria in order to vote. Speaking of voting, I know that there are many, many other organizations right now that are popping up trying to help with the movement and advocacy in Nigeria. One of them is Feed Lagos, which is basically they're like soup kitchens that are popping up, and their goal is to feed, educate, empower, and develop. There are other groups as well, such as I know the guys, the We Move, they have a hashtag. They did a video recently as well. Seun was part of the panel, I believe, on that, and other organizations that are popping up, such as that are trying to push the conversation forward. And I'd like to end with this final question, and Seun, Kuti, if you could please just answer this. What can these organizations, including youth party and citizen collectives like We Move, what can they learn from older generations of leaders and activists, or even from your experience of activism, as to the importance of having and keeping these kinds of conversations going beyond whatever happens online? Because we don't all live online. And like you said earlier, Seun, as well, not everybody can even afford the data to be online. So what should we learn? And that would be my final take-home message from you today.
Is that we cannot let what happened in 2012 continue to happen, whereby we galvanize the energy of the people and then we let the existing oppressors take advantage of it for themselves. What am I saying? I'm saying that whatever happens now, we the Nigerian people must organize ourselves to take power. You know, what we've seen all over Nigeria, you know, is that the Nigerian people have cast the vote of no confidence in this government. And all the elites right now are planning to use us to come back, you know. So we must be the ones, you know, to create the new platform for the new leadership of this country. Organize, organize, organize. That must be our next step. Not socially, but politically. That must be the next step, or else everything we've done right now will be in vain.
Thank you so very much for that. Thank you to everyone who's been on this panel, who sent questions in, who's watched, who's tweeting. Don't forget, we're going to keep this conversation. As you can see, we just don't have enough time. But if you have the data and you can, join us on social media, Africa's Soft Power and the Africa Center. Find us Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, we're there. Let's keep this conversation going. Let's move things forward. And there's a final thing I'd also like to say from my own perspective is, as you've heard, as creatives, we are able to impact change through music, through arts. Arts can be film, it can be painting, it can be creating pattern on clothes and textiles that you offer up to the community to use. Let's do xYZ, ENDSARS, xYZ, whatever you feel like doing. You know, it doesn't start and end online. The future we want is us. The past that we've lived through is us. Our bloodlines, everything that we are Nigerians, we are Africans, and a lot of the times all we have is each other. And we have to find ways to keep hope alive and keep speaking for and keep living for and keep fighting for each other. Okay, so that's it for me. Thank you so much. I know we use a lot of your time. If Akah wants to take up 10 seconds before NEPA off lights in my house, you can try, Akah, but we done.
No, I just wanted to say, I feel like, you know, the people in the South, all of us need to, just move on with our northern brothers. You know, for years and years, they had been dying. There had been death there. There was literally genocide, and nobody, because it was uncomfortable, we didn't want to talk about it. We knew, but we didn't do anything. And now the team don't reach our domots, you know. I feel like for us to move Nigeria forward, we all have to.
What is domots? We don't have 10. Oh yeah, take it online. Please, take it online. We don't have time. Which one is domots now?
Okay, it has reached our doorstep. We all have to move as one Nigeria, North and South, fight against oppression. You know, like I said, we need to bring our northern brothers into this fight, northern brothers and sisters, and we have to ask them for forgiveness. We are one, you know.